Well, you have such an interesting job.
Oh,
Uh,
thank you. I love it. It's
you're
so
the
sweet of you to
super
say.
you're a supervising dialect coach, and I'm reading up on the languages because I'm not familiar, but there's like 10 different languages,
Oh, there's so
right?
many. It's
Or there
yeah,
more?
there's yeah, I think there may be more than that. But it's one of those great things where I only need to focus on the ones that we use in the show. So we have two different types of Elvish. We have Dwarvish, we have Black speech. This season we have a new language which has entered
Mm.
the world for the very first time. As we go into the lands of Rhûn, there's a new language which has been developed by the Tolkien scholars who do all of our translations for the show. So those are the main languages that I get to work with, and the other ones, the other sort of offshoots of Elvish and Black speech that Professor Tolkien invented. Fortunately, I can just save that for my retirement. That can be my focus later on, but at the moment, those are the ones I do.
So, how did you even get to this into this field? Were
Oh
you
my
studying you're a
gosh.
linguist?
Well, a million years ago, I did a voice studies course here in London, which linguistics was quite an important part. So things like phonetics and uh, uh, poetry and accents and dialects and working with actors and all of those different aspects that go towards the various ways and the various projects then at how an actor might be asked to perform. So it incorporated all of those different accents. And I focused particularly on accents and dialects, and phonetics was a big part of that. And linguistics was also obviously an undercurrent within all of those, that kind of structure. So that academic background then has a creative and a practical application. So then you figure out through working with actors over many years um, how each individual actor and each individual mind can take on board a new accent or a whole new created language and make that feel like it's something that's truthful and embodied and something that you can help to stick in their minds when they then have to, sort of charge at a group of 4,000 orcs who are all screaming at them, and to be able to remember what to say, not only in English, but in this made up language, is something that is kind of, you need a whole set of keys to help each actor feel like they can own that
Mhm.
in a really confident way under those kinds of performing pressures. So yeah, there's lots of ways of kind of entering the work, and then that's what I get to do across the landscape of the show. So it's pretty special, and I love it.
Well, I'm reading up on it, and there's been scholars who did who wrote books and all this. It's just like
Oh,
amazing.
this is the thing. I was invited to go to a Tolkien conference from the Tolkien Society in Oxford. And I declined because I thought everyone in the room is going to know more than I do. I have nothing to contribute to these people. I just, these are people who give their lives to this work. And I give my life to it in a different way, but the depth of their knowledge is so impressive, which is why all of the translations that we do for the show are done by people for whom this is their life's work. These
Mhm.
are complete linguistic specialists in this field, and they have access to material that no one else in the world has access to through the Tolkien estate and his legacy. So it's such a privilege when that language work comes through, because in some cases you're seeing things translated for the first time, that they have come up with this word for the first time. And it feels like, for Tolkien, it felt like the map was created with language.
Mhm.
So as we go into new corners of the map, as we're sort of rolling it out into different areas, it's rolling out not just because of what you're seeing, but also because of what you're feeling and what you're hearing, and what the actors are embodying as that all of that happens. So it's like terraforming with language, and I love it. I love it. So yeah, it's really cool. It's a very cool job.
Well,
Well, I think so, but
I always
I'm a
ask
massive
like,
nerd.
and I always ask like choreographers, it's like, what happens if you get an actor who has two left feet? Like, how do you work with people who can't, I
Yeah.
speak Spanish, so people want me to teach them Spanish. So
Sí,
they can't roll their
claro.
tongues, and so what are some of the
Yeah.
barriers, or what are the things you give them to help them kind of like either roll their tongues
Oh my
or do what they
gosh.
need to do to achieve the
Ah,
language?
do you know, I love that you said that, because because it's the first thing that comes to mind. The first, I don't want to say obstacle, but let's say challenge, because that seems more positive. But it is one of those things. I'm pretty sure there came a moment where I said, can we just incorporate into the casting that people need to be able to roll their R's? Can we do that? I don't know if that message ever got. I don't know if I said it aloud at the time, but the hit rate is very good. The actors who come through, fortunately, especially when we have people like Ismael, for example, for whom Spanish is his first language. And he was just like a duck to water with Elvish. He was just, and it sounds so good. And J.A. Bayona, who is one of our first directors in season one, obviously a Spanish director, and his pronunciation of all of the names was just perfection. Galadriel, Galadriel. It was just that's it. I love it so much. It's so good. And then you have people like Morved, who plays Galadriel, who is Welsh, and she also has that trilled R background. She's got that. She's got it down. So her Elvish as well feels like a particular joy to me, because it feels so, it's so easy for them to just incorporate that into their speech and have it feel like you're just code switching. You know what I mean? You're still the same character. You haven't lost your truth or your connection or sense, like truly bilingual. You know, I love that.
Yeah, I was listening in a different way because I knew I was going to interview you. So I was kind of listening. You know, before you kind of just as a viewer, you're like la 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 la. But I was watching, yeah, and I heard a lot of rolling R's, like rolling the tongue. You had to really roll the tongue. I'm like, oh, interesting.
I'm big on it. Yeah, I'm big. I mean, it's Tolkien. You know, Tolkien. Every season I go back and reread. I mean, I do it more than once a season, but I go back and reread his instructions for how the languages are pronounced, obviously, because you just keep wanting to go back to the source material, back to the Bible. And he says that he wants the every R trilled all the time, so rolled every single time. But then you hear clips of him and he doesn't do that. Sometimes he'll just tap the R, so like arondir as opposed to arondir. And so his application of his own instructions was kind of inconsistent, which is unhelpful. But I just go back to the beginning and I go with someone like Morved, and when she is, when she in season one she gives her titles and who she is and announced Galadriel of the Golden House of Finarfin, and she does that because that is what her character feels in that moment. The connection to language is so strong, and her pride in her language and who she is so connected. So it feels like it's a wonderful element to be able to add into the show.
Now you worked on The Hobbit and it's been a little less than 10 years. So did you have to get back into it? Did you have to like relearn it?
Gosh, there is when I was doing The Hobbit, I was working with Orlando Bloom on his character of Legolas, and he said to me at one point, you never really leave Middle Earth. And that was him coming back to a show after, that he did at 19, and he was coming back, however, like more than a decade later, I think it was. And I kind of nodded and smiled at the time, but it was a prophecy. He was right. And you get that phone, would you like to come back to Middle Earth? You get that phone call and you think, I never really left. It's so, it's like New Zealand. New Zealand is always in you. You never leave New Zealand, and you never leave Middle Earth, and you have a different perspective on this world because you've spent so much time exploring a different one. And I know that sounds a bit weird to say, but working and in that kind of environment with people who are so passionate about what they do and so committed to the vision, whether it's Peter Jackson's vision or JD and Patrick's vision for Rings of Power, that level of craft and care being brought into the world, and the generosity with, like, our crews are amazing and our actors are wonderful to work with. And that changes how you are with people in this world too, where you try to bring that care and generosity back into our crazy, mad, mixed up.
So
well.
What do the actors go through? Is there a boot camp before they start? Or is like
gosh.
Before they start shooting, you kind of they go to dialect school?
Yeah.
How does that work?
Especially with the new actors who come in. So for example, this season, Sam Hazeldine plays Adar, and he had to, day one, day 1, poor guy had to speak black speech. I don't know if you've seen any of the show yet, but the very beginning of the season, he was straight in there with black speech, speaking, having to, speak like somebody who knew what they were doing to a big group of orcs. And he had been in prosthetics since goodness knows what time in the morning. So you've got a new character on a big show. He was stepping into the character for the first time that had been created in season 1. So he had that challenge as well. Then you're doing another language. Then you've got prosthetics all over your face. And that was a lot of pressure for him. So long before that day, you introduce them to the world, and you explain. His character in particular speaks obviously English, but also black speech and Elvish. And so you feel the different heritage associated with those different cultures. And for him, because he might speak black speech, but it's not with disdain or disgust, which the elves might do. It's with love and care and a kind of visceral pride connected to his children and the orcs and what he has gone through. So yeah, you introduce them to the world and the technical aspects of the language, but it really is about finding that character's connection to it, not an academic connection to it.
Okay, and I want to ask, do you ever really get really nerdy? I just finished, I rewatched the movie 17 again, and there's 2 characters who speak, I forget which language from Middle Earth.
Oh yeah.
Do you ever get nerdy and talk to someone
Oh,
else
all
in
the
another
time.
language?
Uh,
Code?
uh, yeah, I mean, oh gosh, I get embarrassed by it, but yeah. But yeah, it's wonderful when you meet people who care about this as much as you do. So it's really, if someone just cracks open that door, I'll go, yeah, let's go, let's
Yeah.
play. And it just feels like a wonderful, it feels, yeah, it is, I think play is the word. It feels like a wonderful thing to play with and experience. And and that feels like a privilege. So yes, I do dabble it as for recreation as well. Yes, it's not purely professional, I must say.
Well, speaking multiple languages, speaking especially a secret language is so it's sexy, right?
Oh, yeah, yeah. And that's the thing about when I get language that comes through, um, that's like sometimes we'll have a grab bag of phrases, so it's not something that's specifically in the script, but for this season there are so many battle scenes. We just had months and months of battles. And so we had this big grab bag in 3 different languages of things that people might be called upon to say. And it felt like I felt like Smaug with his treasure mountain. I honestly felt like this was just,
Hey,
this
precious.
thing that I had. It was the precious. It was my precious. And to be able to see someone in a predicament where they're just having to, I don't know, decapitate an orc or something in a particular kind of way. I don't know. And do you have, and someone will turn to you and say, Leith, do we have something for that? And you go, do I? Oh. And then you go into the grab bag and you think, I have my jewels. I will share my jewels.
Oh
So
my
yeah,
God.
that feels pretty good when you get to do that.
Well, I love your energy, and I'm sure the actors
Oh,
appreciate it too.
muchas gracias.
De nada. Well, have a great day. Thank you for so
Thank you
much for
so
your
much.
time.
So nice to meet you. Take care.
Likewise. Thank you. Right.
Bye.
Bye. Thanks, everyone.